This is Mari Robeson of Love Lulu Creative, a podcast that supports and celebrates artists and creative entrepreneurs while giving back to the community in a unique and meaningful way. This is episode number 15, and it's really a good one, guys. I'm so excited to share with you my really good friend, Aaron Christensen of Embellishments Studio. He is so talented. He is really one of the most brilliant people I think I've ever met. And his creative journey is really unique. It's really different. And we talk about it on the episode. I find it so fascinating how all these different artists are finding their way on different paths. And actually, Aaron is really interesting because he's in a very niche market, and that is the children's industry. He designs a lot for the little boys. He does do some girl stuff, but his boy artwork is so fun and unique and different. It's not like anything you've seen. It's kind of vintage. It's very nostalgic. It's just really good stuff. And that's not all he does. Like, he has fabrics and he does these incredible visual merchandising sets and retail displays. And he's worked with celebrities. His artwork's been in just about every notable retail location you could ever imagine, from Neiman Marcus to Nordstoms to Pottery Barn Kids. And he's done it. He's done a really great job at it. So this is a super fun episode, and he's super funny, and you guys will really love him. But I have to tell you, I included something at the end after we had recorded the podcast because I wanted to know an update on his little squirrel friend. So it's kind of funny, and it's really sweet and a cute story, and I've added it in as a bonus at the end of the episode. So I hope you'll stay tuned and listen through to that, because it really is a testament to what a really quality, great person Aaron is. So anyway, other than that, if you guys are liking these videos and with all these really incredible artists and entrepreneurs, I would so deeply appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and you shared it with your friends, especially your friends who are interested in pursuing anything in the arts. It's just so much great information. I really want to get the word out of all these different talented people who are sharing their wisdom and their advice and their resources. And I just really want to get the word out there. And I really appreciate any help that you can do with that. And even just something as simple as subscribing to the channel helps a great deal. So that said, let's stay tuned for a really, really fun episode with the very brilliant Aaron Christensen. Hey, Aaron, it's so nice to have you on my show, and I'm really excited to talk to you because you have done so many different things in the art world, and I just can't wait to dive in and pick your brain on how you've done all these things, and you've been so successful at them. So I'm really excited to ask you a bunch of questions.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Yay. So I was doing a little searching around, and it seems like you do a lot of different things, and you do anything from visual merchandising and creating these amazing displays to, artwork for the juvenile industry. And then you seem to have a lot of DIY projects that you do. But I want to go back to the beginning, and then you can help me kind of walk me through how all these things have evolved of your creative journey. So you live in Portland, Oregon, correct?
That's correct. Yes, I do.
And have you always lived there?
As an adult, yes. I originally was born in Southern California, but we moved up here as a teenager, and so this has been home since.
Oh, okay. So were you at high school in Southern California, or was that in Oregon?
That was in Oregon. Mm-hmm.
So when you were in high school, did you think, I want to go into some sort of creative career, or what were you thinking when you were in high school?
In high school, the creativity came up as more of a superpower that you could use when you needed to, and impress the people you wanted to impress when you could, and had some fun with. But it wasn't ever anything that I thought that I should pursue as a career. It just wasn't on my radar screen. I thought I should pursue something a little more formal, something a little more tried and true.
So did you choose to go to college after you went to high school?
I tried, but I wasn't successful at that. I had too many obligations in my personal world to take care of, so college really didn't end up being something that I could have success with. So I worked and took care of what I needed to take care of, and things just evolved from there.
So when was the moment when you were like, I'm going to do this for a living. I'm going to make art.
I mean, that's always stuff is just like, there's not any one point of revelation, it seems. It's more like you get somebody raising the hand in the back of your head saying, ooh, 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 do this, do this, do this, and you fight it, and you hear it and you see it, especially when you're creative, when you're creating something and there's an end product, and all of a sudden you have people around you admiring it and saying, this is great, you should do this, and you have this apprehension of saying, well, yeah, you say it's good, or I feel it's good, but boy, is that enough? Is that enough to take me further? I don't know. I feel insecure. I'm questioning myself. But there was a particular point where I had decided to pursue a creative position, and it was a big leap for me. And it's going to sound completely silly, but it was actually for Tower Records. I knew somebody that worked for Tower Records, and they needed somebody in their creative department to paint all their displays and create all these features and events for musicians and artists. And Tower Records doesn't exist anymore that I'm aware of.
Oh my God. I wish you could see. I'm like smiling right now. Like, I loved Tower Records in the Bay Area. My brother and I would go there and spend hours.
No, well, they would just say, whatever you wanted to do in the creative department, you could do. So if you wanted to specialize in some particular style of music, or you had a musician coming and you wanted to create some kind of display, you could paint, you could, well, at this point, digital wasn't really an option because it was still kind of early, but you could use the different tools that you have or the different skills that you had to woodwork, paint, sculpt, create things out of foam, whatever you wanted to do. And I really wanted that job because I really wanted to try all those things and use those talents that supposedly I had, told me I had. I really wanted an opportunity to explore that. And I dove in with both feet and said, let me try this. And I actually got the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love this. So when you were in high school, did you do woodwork, or did you do any kind of 3D creating or anything? Like, where did you learn how to do it? Because you're a master at it now. Like, is that the place where you were taught how to do these displays and get into that?
Not really specifically. Growing up, my mother was a painter, and
okay.
that was her relaxation. It wasn't anything she did professionally, but that was her relaxation. So from the time that I was very little, I had my own little easel and my own little paints and markers and whatever it is. And so when she would take her downtime to do that, I would be next to her. And she didn't really teach me in a way that one would think, as far as like, there's this mentor and you do this and you do that. It was really about me just creating what I wanted, how I wanted, with whatever materials I wanted, and she was just encouraging of that.
So you are a true self-taught artist then. We would fall into that description.
Yes. And so over time, I wasn't limited by the medium that I was working in. I would pick up a saw, I would pick up tools, well, why can't I do this? Make this out of plywood. Why can't I sculpt that out of foam or clay or, whatever. Nothing seemed to be too out of bounds to try. And going forward into that Tower Records position, and then from there into some more of the visual merchandising world that I ended up in, the world was my oyster. I could create whatever I wanted. So it just, the trial and error and learning from others, picking things up on the way, experimenting was important. Why can't I make this out of that? I can sure try.
I really love that story, because I think every artist at some point in their life has questioned their ability and has felt that insecurity. And like, people are saying, you should do this, and you're like, but how? you know?
Well, how to translate it into an actual living is what becomes difficult. There's a lot of things that you can do that are a joy, that bring joy to others, but can sustain you. And my mom was maybe a good example of that. My mom did paint. She was a little bit of a reproduction artist. She would see somebody else's work and she would try to kind of recreate that look. She didn't really have her own way of painting. And I remember her trying to sell her paintings and trying to, place them in cafes and little shops and things like that, and seeing the struggle that she had finding an end user for her art. And, that created some inherent fear in me moving forward as to, it's one thing to create something to fulfill your soul or your creativity and create something that people can appreciate, because everybody loves something that's beautiful, or I shouldn't say beautiful. It doesn't have to be beautiful art either. It could be, there's always somebody that's going to admire what you create, but can it sustain you in the real world? Can it pay your bills? Can you raise a family on it? Can you pay a mortgage? Those things are real. And how do you translate something that is mysterious like art into a business?
Tell us how you did that, Aaron, because you did that.
I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still learning. I'm still, every day is a new adventure.
Well, I think, that's very true. I think the way that the internet certainly has helped artists, because it's been able to get our work out there and create opportunities to monetize being an artist, which you certainly look like you're doing really, really well with that. And I'm going to go back to how we kind of met. I know when I was having my daughters, I was very into like painting their rooms and painting their furniture. And I got into turning my art more into the children's art world. And you and I met kind of via that, like the ABC, the Children's Expo. And that's kind of, I think, when you came on my radar, and we met because you were creating rooms that were more boy oriented, I would say, and doing and killing it, because there was really not many artists out. Even now, I don't see a lot of artists that really capture that vibe of like what a little boy's room should feel like. And I had 3 girls, so I never got to really get to have any of your art, but I love like that niche that you got into. So how did you fall into doing that specific work? I mean, you've done a lot of things that we'll talk about, but specifically working for the juvenile industry.
That came about on a special day when I quit my job.
Was it the job at Tower, or what?
No, things had evolved since then, and I was working for a major retailer in their visual display department, doing all their windows and holidays and creating all those fantastic things, and decided to separate. My wife and I were pregnant, 8 months pregnant, and I was working 70, 80 hours a week and trying to create special environments for every designer, every brand, every whatever that was coming into town, whether it was midnight or on the weekends, and trying to do all these special things. And it just became too much. And the company that I was working for wanted some cutbacks. The company had been taken over by the next generation, and they didn't understand how to equate the visual realm into how much does this make us at the end of the day. So my department kept getting cut back, and I was working more and more hours, and I was losing the good people that I wanted to keep because of seniority. I couldn't keep the newer ones. I had to let the newer ones go, and it just became a situation where I was just the art in it was no longer the joy. I was slave to it. And one day we separated, and I just went home and confessed and said I quit my job today. And I had some clients on the side. I had some murals and some kids' room-esque stuff that I was doing. And I thought, you know what, I could give this a go. I really think that, I have enough demand that I could dive in and make this something. And you're right, at that point, the internet was really, really young. There wasn't a Pinterest. There wasn't a play. You had to dial up, and if you didn't know where you were going, you couldn't find anything. So people were still looking at magazines. People were still watching television, looking for that inspiration. And it was a timing thing. It was I created this product. I dove right in with because we were having a baby. I had already created a room for my son. I went for the baby, my daughter. And I had a magazine editor catch wind of it. They came out, shot the rooms, and said, "Wow, these are fantastic. Let's do a little spread on it." And the phone started ringing. And things just took
What magazine was that? Do you remember?
The Street of Dreams magazine. It is a publication for luxury home tours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's an equivalence in your area, but it's basically when they have these big home tours, they create this magazine. It's an opportunity for people to advertise and showcase the homes and that type of thing. And designer kids' rooms was something that was just beginning to happen. You'd start seeing it happening, but it was, again, the execution wasn't quite enough to just make people take notice. And so I wanted to take it to the next level and really stop people in their tracks and show them what could be done. And that's what I did. So for quite a few years after that, I was doing a lot of luxury kids' rooms and other environments, home theaters. That tied into some restaurants, that tied into some retail, where people would come and say, hey, this is the vision that I have, this Disneyland kind of idea in my head, but we don't know how to execute it. And I was that guy. So I would, show up one day with tools in hand or paintbrushes or foam, whatever I needed to create, and I would show up and I would make this happen. And my goal was to always exceed their expectations. And that's what led me to the next client and down that path.
Yeah, so good. Your work is so good, and it's so fun and unique. And you're so recognizable, which is what's really great. It's very authentic, and I love all of the children's art that you are creating. I love the vintage sports. I love the superhero. It just kind of brings you back to your childhood and the Boy Scouts and camping, and it's such a fun. It's just so fun. So,
well, I appreciate that. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I want to uncover those emotions for adults, so we can appreciate what's going on, maybe in a kid's space, or especially a boy's space. It's very easy, like you said, with your daughters. It's very easy for a mom to go out and create a daughter's room because they have that experience of being a daughter. But all of a sudden, they're presented with a son, and men are, of course, welcome in the design world to help design rooms and do all these things, and dads can get involved, and I encourage that. But a lot of times they don't. They'll defer it to mom and let mom do these things, and there's a level of uncomfortableness sometimes of how to express something maybe in a masculine way, but have it still be sweet or have it still be interesting without feeling like they're going down some trite, stereotypical hole in the ground where they have to. You mentioned sports and superheroes. I was trying to do those in ways that weren't just your positive affirmation, little boy, you're going to be a football star kind of way. That was kind of the pigeonhole trap that little boys were put in back in that day, whereas everything was just rah, rah, rah. You can be the world's greatest athlete, or you get to be the superhero. And I didn't really want to be part of that. I wanted to create more just an overall experience. And so I tried creating art that was just creating the environment, not trying to sell the idea that you get to be a firefighter if you want to grow up and be a firefighter. It wasn't really about that. It was just creating environments that would allow them to play and experience it without having it literally written on the wall. You get to be a great firefighter, and I don't know, maybe that's
that's great, because what if he wants to grow up and be a dancer?
Exactly. And I do get a lot of, I get people question me all the time, why not girl stuff? Well, I've tried painting more of the atypical things that moms or dads would expect for a girl's room, and it's just not comfortable for me. It's just not that I maybe can't do a good job of it. I believe that I can do a good job, and I love to experiment and try sometimes, but sometimes you just got to go where you feel comfortable, where it feels easy. And the boys stuff just seemed to be an opening place where I felt like I could make myself happy, make others happy, and sell a few things and do exactly what I was talking about. I could pay the mortgage, I could buy a car, I could do these things, so I could survive.
Well, I think you're tapping on something super, super interesting to me, because as an interior designer, we create environments, and it's how you make someone feel when they come into a space. And you had been doing that with visual merchandising, and everyone knows, when they walk into an anthropology or something, there's just a different vibe that you feel when you walk in there, and it's creative and it's fun, and it's a feeling that you get when you're in it. And you do that with your art. I really see that with because it's not so really so specific, like you're saying, like you're going to have to be a firefighter. It's just a feeling of what is fun for a young boy to grow up in, you know? Oh, I love that.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad you do. And I've been doing this long enough now where I'm kind of like a grandfather in some of these situations where I have some of the children for whom I created rooms for now old enough to have their own children. And so I'm getting these emails and these things of, hey, I was on your site and I saw that you had the picture of my room when I was a kid. And
oh my goodness,
I want to have my child's room look this, and I'm looking for this. Can you help me? And it's really, you know, short of my wanting to tear up, you know, there's the end user that I was wanting. There's that end user that reaches out to me and says, that was one of my favorite memories of growing up, was that room that you created. And
yes.
This, remember, you know, we talked about, you know, some story that had a squid in it. And in my little firefighter room, you painted a little squid arm coming out of the heater vent. That's my favorite little thing, you know, and that just takes it full circle for me. Cause you know, I you know, I want to well up with tears and feel like I've left my mark, and maybe I have, I don't know, but it feels really good to know that I played part in somebody's memories, and that memory has now manifested in them wanting to share that same experience with their child.
Oh my gosh, that makes me want to cry.
No, isn't it? It's kind of snappy, isn't it? It's wonderful.
It's just, I mean, that's why I really loved creating and still love creating children's rooms, because it's like their little magical corner of the world. That's their one little corner of the world where they get to sit and dream and draw and think and grow. And you get to make it really magical, and like it can just be full of imagination. I mean, whenever I was creating stuff for the little girls' rooms that I've done, and I've done some little boy room, but not like you do. But I almost like create it for me. I want to go back to that. I want to be in this little room like this. Yeah.
People often ask me, you know, where did this all start? And I actually grew up in Orange, California. I mean, literally a stone's throw away from Disneyland. So in elementary school, we went to Disneyland for any reason whatsoever. If it was something to do with music or history or whatever it is, you know, back then Disney wasn't that crowded. You could go in a bus and
right,
you know, do all that. And
it didn't cost $150 a ticket. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it was one of those things that I was always that little kid over there scratching everything. You know, the teacher would come pull me away from whatever it was that we were in, because I'm over there digging at it, trying to pick at it, trying to figure out how they made it, and trying to look behind the scenes and do all that. I think that's kind of where it started. You know, without delving into my Freudian reasons of why my childhood lacked a lot of things, and there were some challenges in my childhood, and I wanted that otherworldly experience. I wanted that magical place to go in my head or physically go, and I think that's part of it too. It just stuck with me. There can be magic made. It is possible, Mr. Disney, to do these things. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I often, you know, lovingly in his honor, kind of refer to myself as a one-man Disney. I don't have the staff that he has and the wonderful property and the theme park, but I can maybe do this for one person or one child, or even if it's just in a painting, I can create this painting and hopefully help somebody find that magical place.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I know. Me too.
I do. I just think it's so great. I just, I mean, you are a one-man Disney. That's awesome. I was going to ask you about that because, good grief, you have like, you're selling your fabric on Spoonflower, and you have all of these different things. You have your different online shops and stuff. Is it, and then you're like laser cutting over here and making taxidermy out of clay. And I'm like, where does this guy have the time to do all this? And do you have a staff that helps you, or is it really just you doing all of this?
You know, I have people that I can call if I need some help. I have lots of people that you know, would love to kind of intern or make a small living helping me. And I've drawn those people in when I need to, or if I have a big project, I do. But for the most part, and this will go back to, and I don't even know if this is a topic of the conversation, but talking about, you know, art as a career, there's a certain business side of it that you have to do. And I am not the best people manager. And I realized that at a very young age, I am not that person. So I try not to tax myself with too much of that, and realize that I'm often best left to my own exploration. Not that I don't love working with other people, and not that I don't love the help, but I don't know that I ever would be that person that could have a big, gigantic staff, unless it's so big that I could just be that guy in the office waving his arms around and everybody being the yes person behind me. I don't know, but to have it be an intimate elbow-to-elbow environment, I get too much in my head. I'm probably not a good person to work for in that way, and I hope it's a strength that I realize that and don't torture people. So yeah, I try to keep my projects and my interests within a level that I can handle on my own. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed, but when I am overwhelmed, I know who I can call. I have some trusted people that I really appreciate the creativity, and I have some artist friends that love to help out when they can, and I use that as the strength that I need on bigger projects. But most of the time, it's me. I get to do what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when you have a big staff, then you end up just managing people, and you're not even doing your artwork anymore.
And that's at several points where I've tried expanding into being bigger. I found myself in that mode, and carrying that. It was a large burden to me because that wasn't my skill. So it would become something that would keep me up at night and make me worry. And I realized that was kind of canceling out the creativity, canceling out the flow.
So I get it.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. I would love nothing more to be a male version of Martha Stewart with my minions running around helping me with all my creativity. But I just maybe not where my strength is. So I guess I got to go with my strength.
That kind of leads me to something when I was diving around on your social media. I found a sentence that you wrote that you wanted to get back to working to know and connecting with the owners of your art. Has that been, I don't know if that was an old statement or is that a new statement?
It's a little bit of a mantra that pops up. I've been doing this for now, 21 years, 22 years. So it's an underlying thread that I keep pulling on. I've done so many fun things artistically over the years, and I've had a gallery space that was open to the public, and I would do art showings. I've done events. I've created retail environments. I still do displays. There's, I have my art, all the things that you were talking about. I have lots of ways to put it out there, but sometimes it's nice to be able to bring it back in. And I like that connection, that feedback. And it's hard sometimes. And I know one of the questions that you had asked for me to be ready to answer, giving it away a little earlier here, but you were talking about any advice that you would give, and I won't tell you exactly what I was going to say yet. I'll wait for you to ask the question.
You can go ahead and say it.
But the idea is being true to the creativity and what inspires you, and not the other way around. Not letting the business of art dictate where you're going. And one of the things I learned early was I needed that feedback. I needed to, having created an experience for young people, or created that art display for Tower Records or whatever, I really enjoyed seeing the end user enjoy it and getting that feedback. And that was the loop that I needed to help me learn and evolve that, anything is possible. And, I wanted to please people, and in order pleasing people kind of, that sounds fun the way I'm saying it, but by getting that smile, by getting that purchase, by getting that check at the end of the day, I knew that I was accomplishing what I was needing to do, and making them happy. And then when you exceed the expectations and that person is gushing and they refer you to 10 people and 20 people, and they blog or write or post or share your information, you're doing something good.
Or do a podcast.
Exactly. And if you lose that feedback, if you just become so entrenched in what you're doing and you're not getting that feedback, I think you lose something. I think you lose some of the inspiration. I think you lose some of the purpose. And that might be untrue for other artists. Maybe there's a lot of other artists who have head down and they're focused and they can do what they can do, but that's just not me. I like the symbiotic relationship with my end user. I like to see the smile on their face. I like to know that I've pleased somebody, that I've created something, and I'll keep saying this over and over again, exceeding the expectations. There's nothing more fulfilling as an artist when somebody comes back and you said, wow, I pictured in my head what you were going to create, and this exceeds my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And that provides me with the fuel and the excitement, and it also gives them the fuel and excitement to help promote my business, to help, again, pay the mortgage the next month. They're going to refer to friends, or they're going to share your site with somebody, or follow you on social media, which is very important nowadays.
Well, it reminds you that there is great value to your work, your craft, and it's a validation of it. And
yes.
That's, I think a lot of times there's this myth that art is not important, when art is very important. It's everything. And so it is nice, even on that personal level as an artist, to just have that validation that what keep going, what you're doing is working. It's definitely bringing value to these environments, and you're creating feelings, and especially when you have that moment when the child that grew up in your room is now having a child. I mean, wow. And they come back to you and they're like, I want that again for my kid, because it was such a great experience for me.
And you were speaking earlier how the internet has changed things too, and the internet has helped in that way. There's certain elements of my business, probably your business, a lot of our artistic friends' business has changed because of the internet, because the information is there. Somebody can replicate what we're doing by finding it. They can, how do I make a pom-pom? I can Google it now, and Google will tell me how to make a pom-pom. I don't have to hire somebody to make pom-poms, And there's an element out there now where everyday people can become an artist, but they still need to have inspiration. They still need to have something to look to. And so I think that's where the vacuum is that you and I and our other creatives can fill. We still have a place. It's just different than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. We can still, like we're talking about DIYs, and we can get our art out there. We can, maybe I'm not creating as many high-end children's rooms now as I used to, because they're no longer très chic, because they got played out. It was in every magazine. It was on every television show. It's, you can go to every retail store now, and just by writing a check, you can have the world's greatest kids room, because all of a sudden these kids products are everywhere. So, things can change and evolve, but what's the next thing? And you see this evolution with the internet, with things like parties, and now the gender reveal is very important, and you see this art just creep into every facet of people's lives, and they still need the inspiration. They still need people like you and I to kind of create and lead, if we can. If we can fill that void and keep moving forward and keep inspiring and providing that content, art will survive. The internet's not going to kill the artist.
Oh, I think the opposite. I think exactly what you're saying, 100%. But you just kind of tacked onto something. I actually had this conversation with my daughter this morning, who's studying graphic design, and she was telling me about how this one artist did some artwork for a big music personality and didn't get paid, and they were using it and copying it, and things that happen that you see, and it's really disappointing. Like, the bigger that you get, you see more of the copying. But then what are you going to do once you copy it? It's like you can't keep recreating it, so you're always going to need the creator, the authentic creator person who's actually doing the work and doing these creations. And I think that those people are separating out. You really see who the authentic creators are, and then you see who's copying them, because they can't be consistent with it.
Exactly. And they're still returning to the creators for more inspiration or the next thing, and so it's a new loop. It's a new.
That's a good word. A new loop. It is a loop.
The internet has been challenging. It's there's many aspects of the internet as an artist that I've found frustrating, going from dial up to now you can download entire encyclopedias in a matter of a second. I've had my fair share of copyright infringement. I have been ripped off by lots of companies and not paid and owed money, and strange dealings with where I'm held accountable in my contract, but they're not, and they don't do what they say. And there's been lots of hard knocks along the way, and you kind of need those to help guide you. I would get worried if things are too easy.
Why?
But
what upsets me is that if you have any ounce of creative, like you're a musician and you're stealing art from a graphic designer, we're in this together. You're a musician, you're an artist. You should be supporting that other artist. Like, let's support each other and rise above all that.
It's hard to it's hard to hold everybody accountable. Morally and ethically, and sometimes we just can't. And again, we're the creatives, and it's hard not to get mired down by that. And in a situation like that where your daughter was mentioning somebody not getting paid, sometimes you have the choice of jumping in and getting an attorney and doing all those things, or you have the choice of just realizing that your content was good and somebody took it and ran with it. And it's not a form of flattery. I don't want everything plagiarism is flattery. It's not. But that you've done something right. You've hit the note, and we just move on.
Right. And on another point to that is get a retainer, get paid up front, and have a contract. Don't do it for free over a text message. And I mean, that's something that really needs to be negotiated in a signed contract. And here's a deposit. So at least there's a real true business happening. And I think what I was telling her was like, this was a young designer that had this happen to them. And I think when you're young and all of a sudden you have somebody major, like you've had celebrities come to you and say, hey, I want you to do this. You instantly think, oh, well, they're a celebrity. I should just do it for free. And it's like, no. They're coming to you because you are talented and they see something they want. So there's an exchange for that. And that exchange is money. And it just, or it could be shout outs or whatever the negotiation is. But I think the younger, like I know my younger self gave a lot of things away when I should have be more proactive about what I should have been charging for that skill and those hours and the education and all the time that it takes to be a creator, Yeah,
and I've had that similar experience, and there's lots of memes that go around about don't ask artists for things for free. There's lots of little memes like that go around. I chuckle every time I see them because it's so true. Way to support your artists is to actually pay them.
Exactly, because they have bills to pay, right?
Exactly. But having my situation be growing up with two sweet babies and a life, and I was a sole provider, I didn't have that option. I just couldn't. And I got asked a lot, and I turned people down. It was hard to do because there were some opportunities, there were some celebrities. I remember one particular celebrity of mine, and I won't mention who she is, but literally flat out said, I want you to do this for free because I'm a celebrity. I mean, literally just said it in a sentence. Usually they dance around it a little bit, or they have their person talk to you and they dance around it a little bit, but it was literally flat out, straight to my face. I want you to do this for free because I'm good for you and I can help your brand.
I just don't get that, because it's like you are an actor, you are an artist. It's like support the other artists. It's like you're the one you probably have some money. So why wouldn't you want to? Like, I love to be able to support other artists when I can. That's what a shame that.
Yeah, it was just really odd, and I still see this celebrity, and maybe she's not quite as celebrity as she used to be, but I chuckle every time I see her on TV. And think, my turning her away was probably one of the best things, the strongest things that I've ever done, because it was a trap. I mean, I really felt like, wow, I should do this. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because it would probably set precedents for me for the rest of my life to feel like I should just give things away for free. And I didn't. And it really didn't affect me. It really didn't change much. Did I maybe miss an opportunity? Maybe. but I kept marching forward and didn't look back. So it's funny. I see her career maybe waning in the actress world. She's more Hallmark Channel now than she is a celebrity A-list. And so it's, kind of, I don't want to say like I'm relishing in her lack of success now, but it's like, I wonder if she feels like she has that star power to go around asking for things for free anymore. I wonder if she gets it now that she maybe needs her paycheck. Maybe
Right.
trying to get Hallmark to write another check for another series of sappy Christmas movies, it's.
Yeah. You know what? This is really good stuff, because this is truly the kind of advice that when you're starting out in a career as an artist, and any kind of artist, whether it's interior design or graphic design or you're in music or stuff, you have to put your own value on your work. And it's just like, you don't go to the mechanic and say, okay, I want my car fixed up for free. You're going to pay the mechanic. So why wouldn't you know that you're going to pay this artist to design this logo for you? I mean, that's their job. It's not like,
yeah, well, the ethereal people, us creatives, where things are in our heads, the interior designers, the graphic artists, the fine artists, the musicians, the dancers, the people where it's not a tactile, well, it's not a tactile product, but I think you know what I mean. It's not like a mechanic. We often get our brains picked, and there is a point where you have to learn the difference between somebody where they're looking for inspiration, they're looking for the vocabulary from you, and you do have a little bit of an obligation to your customer or to the people around you to kind of bring that vocabulary up, to inspire, to give them enough content for free to bring them along so they understand what you're talking about. But there is a point where it becomes, you have to say no. You can no longer pick my brain for free. This is where I do get paid, and that is something that everybody has to work out. And some people get it early, some people get it late, some people never quite get it, and they get their brains picked their entire lives. And people often asking, gee, Aaron, you're an artist and you're an artistic business and you've been doing this so long. What is the key to that success? Is more art classes, and is it this inspiration, and what is this? You do yoga and meditate. What is it you do? And it's really there actually is two separate worlds that you have to live in. You have the artistic side and you have the business side. And rather than somebody going out and taking a watercolor class, I would say go out and take a business class. Go learn how to use your business software, or go to these networking meetings and learn what it's like to be in a business and educate yourself in that way. The art comes easy. The art is easier than that. There are so many people they're great artists, they just don't have a successful business. And there are a lot of people with successful businesses that aren't so good at art, but they make a living at art.
So good, Aaron. This is so true. I mean,
I know you, Mari. I know me. We're walking through Target, and we see this brand new little display pop up, and we're like, huh? What? But they're out there networking. They're out there doing it. They're going to the shows. They know how to handle their business. They're doing a great job. And maybe the art didn't quite reach the level that maybe we thought that it could, or possibly could with the consumer, but they've got it out there, and they're doing a great job, and more power to them, because we need to learn from those people too. How do those people run their business? What is it they do? We can't just rely upon our fingertips to make magic. We have to sometimes use that other side of our brain and figure out how to make a living, or how to get to that goal.
So those are really great topics, and I really appreciate you bringing all that up. Oh my goodness. And I think we just really dive right into the advice, since we're kind of already tackling advice right now. So my questions are, what was the best business advice ever given to you?
The best business advice wasn't so much as something that somebody said to me. It was an experience that I watched.
Okay, good.
And I had seen an interior designer, as a matter of fact, get knee deep into a project, spend a lot of money on a project, fronting the project a lot of money, and having them taken advantage of by the customer.
Mm.
and they lost their shorts and created a lot of stress in their life, a lot of health problems. I even think it was one of the purposes that led to the demise of their marriage.
Oh my goodness.
Their business just failed, and then there was a lot of money invested. And I remember the sadness, and I remember how that person went from being somebody that was so creative and so in love with their job, and just one small bad decision, one misplaced bit of trust and lack of good paperwork and all those things that you were talking about earlier, a good contract and a retainer and all those things ruined them. And that stress just carried over for the years after that, and they weren't ever the same. And having watched that, of course, I was writing on the project, and I made sure my contract was strong. I got paid. I was, I was taken care of, but they weren't, and it broke my heart. And from then on, this was really early in my starting my business. That's when I made sure my contract was clear. I made sure that I had a retainer for everything. I made sure that there was a change order, which in the art world is more common than not, where things evolve, to make sure that was in writing and that everybody understood what was going on. And again, it wasn't a specific word of advice, but it was just that experience of seeing that from the outside. I was there elbow to elbow with that person every day, working on a residential project, and I just saw them fall apart by the end of the project, and it was just sad. So it's not an uplifting bit of advice. It's not something that I could maybe pass on to somebody else, but it was what I gained from it was very rich. And I guess how I turn that into advice is, if you have an opportunity to learn through the others that you're elbow to elbow with, and can listen and hear from learn from their experiences, do try to, because there's a lot of wealth of information out there, especially with running your own business. And if you can learn through somebody else's happy moments or learn through their sad moments, please try to absorb that, because there's nothing better than having that vocabulary early in your business, where you know your boundaries and you know what you can be strong at and what you can be weak at.
I think that's actually really good advice, and it's not something that we've talked about on the podcast before, but contracts are really good. Even just clear scope of work and saying, this is what I'm going to be responsible for, and this is my payment system, and this is how this is going to, it's transparent to everybody. And then it shows that you're serious. Like, this is a serious business here. And it just makes everybody sleep better at night. And I'm really sorry to hear that happened to that designer. That's what a shame to lose all your joy on one job like that.
It was a very, very big job for a notable celebrity. So it was one of those things where there was a lot of money involved, and it was really sad.
Oh, geez.
I didn't get paid at the end of the job.
Wow.
But the other thing about contracts and all that, it sounds very daunting and very scary, but there's lots of business people out there that can help you with those things. There's lots of attorneys. There's lots of forms that you can, even get online. Just get that out of the way, so the creativity becomes the focus. If you're mired down on the business side of it, and you're worried and you're stressed, and am I going to get paid? Am I going to do this? It robs you of that creativity. So get that out of the way. It's actually helpful to have that be strong. That way you can focus on what you're good at, get past that difficult hump, and move on to the good stuff. It really is truly helpful to your creative process, is just to get those stresses out of the way and have them be locked down and clear.
And it helps the client too. Then the client knows what they're paying for and what to expect and when to expect it. And there's no weird thing going on. It's this is just very clear. It's what contracts are. They're transparency. It's this is what I say I'm going to do, and XYZ. Done.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so scary.
I am not an attorney, and I don't pay on TV, so none of this is legal advice. It's just advice from an artist.
Exactly. It's life experience. Yeah. Okay, so what would be your advice to that young kid working at Tower Records? What would you have said to him?
Well, akin to what I said earlier, I think we get in a situation where we do want to please, and we do want to find that end user, and we want to have that big artistic experience that everybody talks about, of the joy and the rapture of our work. So having experienced that and having reinvented myself multiple times over the years and found joy and found sorrow along the way and try to be true to my artistic self, I would say, be sure to understand that you define your creativity. Don't let it define you. Meaning, it's really easy to get into a restrictive trap or be confined by a particular type of work that you do. And you make mention of all the things that I do. I do what I love, Mari. I follow every little thread, and every little new thing that I do is like, wow, I really enjoyed that. Let me explore that a little bit. And I'll run down that line a little bit. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people think, well, I'm a fine artist, I can only do this, or I'm only a visual display artist, I do this. I only watercolor. I'm only doing little girls' rooms. I'm only doing these things. Nothing should stop you. Pull on every single creative thread and go down that line. Don't let your creativity trap you. Let it open you up and let it take you into new experiences.
I love that too. That's one of my goals, is to die empty. To just
yeah. I've spent it all. I'm done. Yes.
Yeah. I've done it all. I wrote that book. I did that line.
I crocheted a tree yet, but anyway. Yeah.
No, that's really good advice, to just keep going. There's so many fun things. That's what I love about what's happening in this time. I really do think it's the age of the artist, and there's so many opportunities, and you see, like, you can go have a fabric line on Spoonflower or design wallpaper, or there's no limitations to that. The only limitations now is your creativity, and that is what you want to work on, that flow and staying authentic to that voice that is there, because all these opportunities to do all these really fun, cool things are there now, which is great.
I don't know if I mentioned you or not, but I'm working on another series of new sports art, and it's funny you use those words. One of the pieces, I decided I was going to make some little motivational posters to go with it that I could offer, as if you buy X amount of artwork, you got some free motivational posters to go with it. But one of them, the quote is, "You are your only limit."
I love that.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned the limit there, because I've pondered all these positive affirmation quotes as to which ones to include, and the ones that I chose, maybe they're for me. I'm not sure, but it's kind of fun to read those sometimes and kind of look back at yourself and say, hey, what is it that I'm doing to be inspired today, or what am I limiting myself? How am I my biggest fan or my worst enemy? And
I love that. How do you find your inspiration? Like, what do you is there something, do you take sabbaticals and go out into nature, or what inspires you? Or is it just flows to you all the time?
I can't put my finger on any one particular thing, other than the fact that I just try to stay wide-eyed and open to seeing the world around me. And, there's lots of reasons in life to be cynical or upset, or like all the things that we talked about, all the negative things in the world. But really, you get up each day and you open your eyes, and the sun's shining, and there are no limits to what you can do. And when you are a creative, and when I walk into my studio, I have the tools and the capability. I mean, this is it's somewhat like a combination between a Home Depot and a Michael's blew up in my studio. I have everything you can possibly imagine in here, and there's nothing stopping me from creating other than myself. So yes. My inspiration is just getting up wide-eyed and realizing that I can pull on those threads. And if I want to make taxidermy today, I can do that. If I want to paint, I can do that. And of course, I have to worry about how I'm going to sustain my business. But at the end of the day, I have those clients that want those things. And so trying to stay connected with the artistic joy is what inspires me for the next day. It's not, I drink a lot of coffee, some really good candles, but other than that, you touched on this earlier, the internet. I love seeing other creatives work. I love my Facebook friends. I love my Instagram people that I follow, because I am just knocked over by the creativity that's out there in this world, and things that I can't even fathom sometimes. And I feel like I've got a pretty open mind artistically, and I see these things wow, I have an artist friend who creates art out of basically trash. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for using the word trash. I don't know what else to call it, but recyclables and things that are discarded, and these beautiful floral shapes come out of this. These beautiful installations come out of it, and I am knocked out by what is created there. I was kidding earlier about people crocheting trees. I just saw an installation where somebody crocheted a bunch of trees on some boulevard somewhere. And
Oh yeah.
lined with all these crocheted trees with crocheted blankets around them, and it just, that's what inspires me, is just seeing that art is alive out there. And it's probably just too simple. I do really
No,
do.
I love that. I love that.
A magical moment with a guru somewhere, but it's not.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes just ideas, like I dream in patterns. Like I have a lot of things that come to me in my dreams, which is, I don't know if that's normal or not, but that I have really vivid, colorful dreams. I know. What were you drinking when you went to bed that night? But I love hearing that, and I am so inspired, just like you, by all these other artists, and that's what I do love that about Instagram, just seeing what people are creating, and I don't want all the negative aspect of it. I think that's small. I think if you're really truly an artist and you're creating from your heart, it's just always going to rise to the top.
Yeah, and I think that's what if I were to leave your podcast with anything, it would just be just keep pulling on those threads.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a little joy from pulling on the thread, keep pulling, keep going. Don't be scared. It'll be okay. And if you're what's that quote about do what you love, type of thing. Yeah, you have to worry about the business side, and everybody does, and that can be stressful. But really, if you are pulling on that thread and you find some joy and you can make a little bit of money and you can sustain yourself for the next project, keep going, keep doing it. And it'll take you wonderful places. Don't get locked into, well, gee, I made X, Y, and Z and I got to do that over and over again. Explore those other threads, pull on them. I am pro art class. I am pro crafting. I am pro DIY. Do all those things. Try it and see where it takes you. Because again, the art world is so vast, and there is a vacuum to be filled by us creative people, that there's room for everybody at the table.
Absolutely.
And so jump in, put both feet in, and maybe you won't be a successful art business. Maybe you can't be that person. Maybe you can. You won't know until you try. But hey, you can always have an 8 to 5 and do art on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So for inspiration, for that guiding light, to have those leaders, to do those things, to get on the internet, to find those things, it is a wonderful day that we live in. It is like you just said it, and I'm thankful that I play part in this to what extent the people that follow me or enjoy my work, or my clients that call me 20 years later because they're pregnant. I'm so happy to be part of all this, and that's what brings me the joy. I don't remember all, I can recall them, but I don't focus on all the things that do those bad experiences and all that. I just keep moving forward and create joy, and I'll buy a new machine, I'll cut up plywood, I'll laser this, I'll do fabric, I'll do whatever it is to bring the joy back and keep it. And gosh, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it comes across in your work, and that's why people are attracted to that energy of your work. It's because you're putting so much love and joy into it. So it comes across in the art, and people want to have that in their home. Because again, going full circle, it creates a feeling for them. And it's because it's coming from the right place with you.
Yeah, at least I try.
So good.
I do my best. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aaron. This has just been so amazing and helpful, and just great to talk with you.
This is such a great replacement for sitting across the table with a cup of coffee, or may I say a margarita.
Well, that was fun too.
It sure was, yes.
So we're good. We're done. But I have to ask you about the squirrel. What happened to the squirrel? He was so cute.
I've turned into the crazy squirrel man now. So
Did the squirrel just show up at your office one day, or your workshop?
No. my studio is on the property where my house is. I have a half acre in urban Portland, which is really weird because there's no such thing as a half acre in urban Portland. But I do have, I lucked out, I have it. I have a studio, it's a separate building.
Ooh, nice.
And my son came over with his dog, Aurora, and she's this beautiful husky. And so she's outside the studio. I hear her running back and forth and doing all of her playful things. And then it got quiet. And I'm like, uh-oh, quiet's not good. So I pop my head out, and she's literally almost like one of those pointer dogs, like staring at the grass and just frozen mode. And I'm like, oh, she's got something. Oh no! So I ran over there, and I just see this. I don't know how to describe it. It looked like a wet sock out of the wash machine. Just this thing laying there. Like, what in the world is that? So I bent over and looked, and it was a baby squirrel, and it wasn't damp. It was just like uncared for, and it had fleas, and it was on the verge of death. It was wheezing, and I'm like, oh, and I don't think she got it because it was just laying in this little spot in the grass and didn't really then moved or she picked it up. And she's not that type of dog anyway, but she saw it. So I'm like, oh, I hate having to put animals, down. Poor little thing, it's just suffering. So I went and got some gloves on and picked it up because it was just covered with fleas. It was nasty.
Oh.
And I brought her into the studio and I set it down on the workbench and I was kind of looking at it and I'm like, oh, poor thing. I don't know if I'm brave enough to do this, So I'm like, well, least I can do is make it so it doesn't suffer, and let me wash the fleas off. So I gave it a little bath with a sponge and some soapy water and rinsed it all off, and then it's, it would move around a little bit, and my heartstrings were being pulled, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe water, maybe. So I'm getting the eyedropper out because, the craft store here that I have in the studio, I have everything.
Of course you have an eyedropper.
I'll make one. I'll make an eyedropper.
I'll make one.
Where's my laser? So I give it some water and I cover it with a little blanket. And I make a little box, and its breathing started to level out a little bit. It wasn't wheezing as much, and I'm like, well, okay, what do I do now? Oh, well, maybe figure out how to feed it. So sure enough, I Google and do all this. So lo and behold, a couple weeks later, I've got this squirrel running around in the studio.
Oh my God, it was
I'm
so
the
cute.
I'm the mom.
Oh my gosh.
I guess what had happened, and after I thought about this, I knew this, out in front of the house, there had been a dead squirrel earlier in that week. And I think what it was, that was probably the mom out hunting for food or doing whatever, and it was killed in the road. So the baby was abandoned, and it was on the verge of death. So then I literally have this fluffy squirrel sleeping on me, jumping up on my shoulder, curling up on my neck. I was the mom. And the funny part of this is, now you're going down this rabbit hole, Googling and finding out what this is. And I'm like, oh, okay, pick it up and look at it. Okay, it's a little boy because it has a little pee-pee. And so, I'll give it a little, little boy name, and, we're having fun and doing all these things. And there came a point where I had to travel, and I'm like, I can't keep a squirrel alive while I'm gone. I can't take it with me. I know I can't get anybody to take care of a squirrel for me. So what am I going to do? So I ended up finding a squirrel refuge that would take it. And I took it out there, met this nice lady, and she had all these squirrels in her little property in these little cages. And so there I am, tears streaming down my face because I have to give up my little baby. And I'm like, oh, well, he's been such a little joy. And she looks at me and she goes, you mean her? I'm like, what? What about them? No, that's not it. Little girls have things that kind of look like that, but when they get older, they don't look like that anymore. That's a girl. I'm like,
no.
Oh, I'm the worst father ever.
Oh, love is love. It's okay.
Love is love, yeah. So I'm not very good at sexing squirrels, but I can rehab them. I can bring them back to life.
That was so cute. Yeah. Do you ever go visit the squirrel? I wonder if they would remember you.
Well, they were like they were a transition house for squirrels.
So they were kind of getting them ready to go back into the wild.
Yeah, they basically reacclimate them. They would take care of them. I guess the thing with the squirrels is they're born so early in the winter that the mom keeps them alive, through the winter. Spring comes, they start getting their independence. They learn to feed on their own. So you still have to go through that process regardless if the squirrel's been abandoned. So it has to learn how to fend for itself from other squirrels. So they spend like 6 months around other squirrels in captivity, learning how to do those things. And then they create little nesting boxes and things for them to be outside. And then they transition outside. And then they basically go out and let them free out in the woods somewhere. So little Doot Doot was the squirrel's name. Little Doot Doot's out in the wild somewhere. And Doot Doot was the word, not the word, that's like a crazy squirrel man. That's what the squirrel would articulate to me when I walked in the room. It would make this little Doot Doot noise. When I ever walked in the room, it was Doot Doot, so I was just like, hello, Doot Doot, right back to it. So little Doot Doot's out in the wild somewhere. But I'm eyeballing the squirrels in my yard now. Every time I see them, I'm like, hey.
I know. I wonder if she'll make her way back to you.
Yeah, I wonder. Or I'm like an ambulance chaser, wondering if there's another squirrel adoption that could happen at any time. Mention to your friends, if they find a squirrel, call Erin.
Oh my God, I love that so much, and I was so surprised I didn't see any squirrel artwork come out of that.
I've been
just saying.
I've been tempted. Go down to that squirrel. Yeah. What's the one bit of business advice that you would have, Erin? Don't do squirrel artwork. There's not a demand for it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I love squirrels.
I know, me too.
I think they're so cute.
I like the paintings where they're dressed up in little hats and little ties and all those things too.
Okay, that is just such a great story. I'm going to have to make that a little bonus on the end of this. That's so cute because I love that squirrel. When you were posting that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so darn adorable.
I didn't post it because some body parts were showing in the thing, and that's not my thing on social media. But I'll share one last little clip with you. So I was getting ready to say goodbye to the squirrel, and now the squirrel's up and running, and it's got a fluffy tail, and it's just absolutely adorable. And so my son comes by to videotape our last little moments together, and so he didn't believe me that the squirrel would jump up on my shoulder on command. So I set the squirrel on the ground, and I kind of click my fingers up on my shoulder, and the squirrel looks up at me. Normally would jump right up onto my shoulder. I'm 5'8", it's not that far. But jump on my shoulder. And so I'm snapping my fingers, the squirrel's looking at me, and it runs over and runs up my pant leg.
Oh my God.
So there I am with the squirrel at my pant leg, laughing my ass off. He's videotaping it the entire time. And they have really long, sharp claws.
Yeah, they do.
So it's not like I can just push the squirrel or pull the squirrel out of my pant leg, and it's getting somewhere. It's close to it's getting close to the danger zone. And we're laughing and laughing. So I'm unbuckling my pants, and I'm reaching down and trying to get the squirrel out. And it's running around the backside of my leg, and it's running up the backside. It's avoiding my catch, and we're just laughing. And of course, my pants drop. I'm standing there in my underwear with a squirrel in my pants. So I never posted that one, but there's a little you can stick in your head. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, the adventures. Yeah.
Oh my God. We have a lot of squirrels around here too. I remember going for a run one day, and I was just back at the house, and I was stretching, and this squirrel like ran up my leg, and I had shorts on, and it just, it was like, it scared me to death. And it also clawed my leg, which was kind of scary too. It was like, and then it ran away, and I was like, holy cow, what just happened to me? I felt assaulted.
Well, now we know where Doot Doot is, because Doot Doot wanted to run up your leg. See, yeah.
Oh, that's so
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Exciting artist life. There you go.
Yes, the inspiration. Yes, it comes from strange places. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Erin. This has just been great. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this podcast and you'd like to support it even more, you can join me over on patreon.com/Mari Robeson and become a patron of mine. If you're a patron of mine, you'll receive bonus episodes every month, only for patrons. You'll also receive 20% off all the merchandise in my online shop, marirobeson.bigcartel, and you will be receiving free printables every month that will be of my artwork, and they're some really fun things. You can follow along on Instagram and you can see what I'm creating just for my patrons. I would deeply appreciate it. It would help me keep the lights on, and it would help me pay all the fees that it takes to put together a podcast like this so that I can keep supporting all the artists, keep bringing you great information, keep paying it forward to the next generation of artists. It's just a wonderful thing, and I would really deeply appreciate your support.